Good morning, fans of the Grueling Truth. We are excited today to launch our new show. It's called Tri State Football Weekly. It's going to be about the University of Cincinnati Bearcats football team and the University of Miami, Ohio football team. We're going to be covering both those teams. Basically, we live here in the tri state area and we're very proud of our teams. We wanted to let you know the insight to both of those teams. We're excited about covering those. Of course, we have the legendary coach. We have Mike Goodpaster, who's going to be a part of it. And we have me, James Ernest. So strap in. We're excited. And we're going to be talking up Bearcats and RedHawks. Coach, what would you? Oh, wow. Coach, are you excited?
I'm always excited, James. And I'm excited because you got a Northern Kentucky River Monster shirt on. Are you ready for the Kentucky Barrels? And could there be a worse name for a football team?
Yeah, you're right. That is a horrible name. I'm not excited about that aspect of it. The only good thing about that name is that I feel it should make it easy to get a sponsorship deal with some type of bourbon company. I don't see how they, don't. I figured that would have been the first thing they would have done, called up, Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, whoever, and said, "Hey, we're the Barrels. Don't you want to be a part of
Yeah,
us?"
we know that's not how indoor football works usually, though. So, all right. So, what do you want to talk about first, James?
We're going to talk about the Bearcats first. We're going to go a little bit through the team, shoot what to expect for the season, and then we'll discuss their game against Nebraska. So, to start off, obviously, you can't talk about the Bearcats without talking about Scott Satterfield. Last year, he started out 5-2. They looked hot, they looked exciting. It seemed like it was destined to have a ball, and then they finished at 5-7. How do you feel about that?
I think Scott Satterfield, if he doesn't make a bowl game, there's going to be a new coach in Cincinnati. I actually think there should probably be a new coach in Cincinnati. Anyways, he was 5-7 last year. That was an improvement from the year before, but you've only got 7 starters to return from that team. But then again, it's 5-7, so is it that bad to lose a bunch of guys? They've added 9 starters from other programs via the portal. Everybody does that. This is a different team. I think this is a better team than what we saw last year. And I think there's no reason why this team can't win 6 or 7 games and make it to a bowl game. The first game against Nebraska, I think is going to be huge for him because if you get that, you're going into Big 12 play probably 3-0 as you play a couple of the Sisters of the Poor after that. Now, I think the biggest returning part here and the thing that has to give you hope with Cincinnati is number one, the defensive line. I think it's one of the better defensive lines in college football. Number two, you get Brendan Sorsby. He came from Indiana. He was a transfer. He's 6'3", 240 pounds. He's a dual threat quarterback, which you kind of need in college a lot of times. And he completed 64% of his passes last year, almost 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns. I think it was 7 or 8 interceptions. And on the ground, he ran for, I think, right around 450 yards, 9 touchdowns. So in 2023, he started 7 games in Indiana. I think it was like 15 touchdowns, 7 picks for like 1,500 yards. So he wasn't bad. He's backed up by Brady Lichtenberger, who is a career backup who I think's only thrown like 30 or 40 passes in his entire career. The interesting addition here on offense, I think, was the running back senior Tyree Walker, who, of course, arrives via the portal from Wisconsin and Oklahoma. This is his 3rd program. That's normal
Mhm.
now. But he rushed for 864 yards, 10 touchdowns at Wisconsin last season, and had 513 yards, 7 touchdowns in 2023 at Oklahoma. So I think that running back will be huge. I think you've also got Evan Pryor, who I think will be his backup, who I think adds a lot. They restocked the receivers from the portal. They added junior Cyrus Allen, senior Jeff Caldwell, junior Caleb Goody. Now, Allen started 5 games for Texas A&M last season, so he's a talented dude. 18 catches, 269 yards, and a touchdown. And prior to that, at Louisiana Tech, he had 68 receptions for 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. Caldwell was a 2-time first-team all-conference honoree at Lindenwood, which is an FCS school, where he caught 92 balls for 1,800 yards. Goody caught 21 for 436 and 4 touchdowns last season for Colorado State. But the star, I think, is going to be senior tight end Joe Royer, who's 6'5", 260 pounds, and he caught 50 passes last season for 521 yards and 3 touchdowns. Royer is a first-team All Big 12 honoree. He broke Cincy's record for catches by a tight end, and that mark was held by a man by the name of Travis Swift. See how I did that? On the big thing is always the offensive line. Now, they do return a couple guys. You got senior center Gavin Gerhardt, and you got senior tackle DeAndre Buford. They both return. Gerhardt is a 3-year starter. Buford is a 2-year starter. They'll be joined by junior right guard Tyron Tayo, a transfer from Ball State, senior left tackle Joe Cotton, a South Dakota transfer. But with Tayo and Cotton, I mean, they're decent here.
A lot of people wanted those guys, though. A lot of people wanted.
I think they're good guys. I think the question is this: with only 2 returners, you're adding 3 new guys. This is something where usually I complain about UC's early season schedule. This probably would have been the year to open with an Eastern Kentucky, if you know what I mean, because this offensive line is going to go up against a solid Nebraska defense, and cohesion is huge for an offensive line, and that'll be the first game these guys have played together. Now, when we look at defense, I mean, Cincinnati will be led by nose tackle Dante Corleone. And no, he's not one of those Corleones, but he's a 3-year starter. And as a freshman, he was a Football Writers Association of America freshman All-American. He was first-team All-AAC as a sophomore. Corleone was named second-team All-Big 12 last year. He was a I think he'll be a first-team All-Big 12 guy this year. Now, you also have a sophomore defensive end, Marquez Parker, who saw limited time as a true freshman. But a big forecast here to play a big role in 2025 is junior defensive end Jalon White McLean. He arrives through the transfer portal from Old Dominion, where he had 41 tackles last season. That linebacker, they bring back 6 or 7 guys who started at least one game last year. So I think at linebacker are going to be solid. Now, the issue is the Bearcats switched last season to a 3-3-5 defense, and the transfer portal, you know, they had to replace 4 starters. They got sophomore Jaquan Sanks, who's a 5'11", 200-pounder, who started 6 games last season with 42 tackles. He's slotted to be the 5th star defensive back, which is what you call the 5th defensive back. He's a dude that can play a little bit. He can play linebacker. He can play a little corner. He can play a little safety. You can move him around, do whatever you want with him. He's the only returner from that secondary. Now, they added Xavier Williams, who was a transfer from Middle Tennessee State, where he had 77 tackles. He was a 3rd-team All-Conference USA guy. You got a sophomore strong safety in Taden Barnes, and he transferred from New Mexico State, where he had 57 tackles in 25. Junior cornerback Matthew McDoom had 36 tackles with 10 pass breakups and 3 interceptions for a very good Coastal Carolina team last year. So I think this is a team that should get to a bowl game. The defense should be good. The running game will be good. You got a dual threat quarterback, but the Big 12 is hard. But if Satterfield coaches this team well, they should make a bowl game, James.
So it feels like they made a lot of improvement. Like you said, I mean, after going 5-7, you're not too sad to see a lot of the players leave. But going back to last season, and I know you're probably not a big fan of the if game, but if they do win that Pittsburgh game that was 27-28, if they do win that Texas Tech game that was 44-41, are we talking different, or do we feel different about Satterfield going into this season? Is he on the hot seat?
I would put it like this, though. When you're a coach, if you lose close games constantly, a lot of times that's a coaching issue more than anything else. So you could go look at any team. You could go look at bad teams, and they can say, well, we came close to winning these 3 games, and if we'd have done that, we'd have been 500 and made a bowl game. So the difference is this. I forget who it was who said it, but I think it was Dennis Green, the old Cardinals and Vikings coach. You are what your record says you are. And they were a losing team last year. And yes, at 5-2, you had those 2 games to turn it into 7. You'd be a bowl team. But I could ask you this. You're a UC fan that covers a lot of UC games. Do you think Satterfield's the right guy for this job?
No, really.
Then you just answered your own question.
Yeah. Yeah, we've kind of felt the entire time that it just feels off. It feels more like oh gosh, the Alabama governor.
Tommy Tuberville, yeah, the old Auburn coach that came
Yes,
here. Yeah, and the program went to crap. I mean, that guy was such a bad head coach. He named Zach Taylor his offensive coordinator, and we see that Zach Taylor still doesn't call plays very well.
exactly. It's just weird though that he was able to be so mediocre in college and somehow get an NFL job. It
Well, a
still
lot of
kind of
that
baffles
is
me.
who daddy is and the jobs that family members had and friends. You know, you're friends with McVay out of LA. McVay got a job young because his daddy was the GM at the Giant or GM in the NFL for multiple years, was a head coach with the Giants. So nepotism runs wild in the NFL. So it runs wild in college too. You can see Bill Belichick gets a job at North Carolina under the condition that when he leaves, his son will be the head coach.
Well, you've done an amazing job of breaking down the Bearcats. I just want to ask you a couple of different questions before we go on to the RedHawks. Like, for example, what do you feel or what do you think about Brad Glenn, the offensive coordinator for the Bearcats? I mean, do you think they need to take more shots and be more aggressive, or do you think they need to specialize in what Sorsby does well? I mean, at the 10 or
I,
less
I would say
yards.
this. I think their defensive front's going to be really good. I think their front seven's going to be good. I think there's questions about the DBs, but I don't think this is a team that's going to want to get into shootouts, if you know what I mean, especially when you're playing the Texas Techs of the
Mhm.
world. I think they've got a very good running back that they brought in. They've got a quarterback that can do a little bit of everything. They got a really
Mhm.
good tight end. To me, I don't know why you want to air it out here. I mean, to me, this is a ground and pound kind of a team that lets their defense help them win the game and they try to limit their own mistakes because I think this is a defense with that front seven that could cause some havoc, get some turnovers. And as long as you're not turning out, let's face it, football games are won by the team that makes the fewest mistakes 99% of the time. So and we've got a lot of wide receivers, and you got an offensive line that, like I said, they haven't all played together before. So when you start off the season, to me, I want to run the ball until those guys get comfortable. I don't want to put Sorsby in a bad spot with an O line that may not have gelled yet.
So as a coach, are you going to be or would you be doing more 50-50 or three-fourths the time, giving it to Pryor or giving it to Walker? You know, because Walker is really great at breaking tackles. He broke 20% of the 7% of the time he broke a tackle before, getting tackled.
Well, see,
So
to me, I
he
would
obviously
probably
did a
be a
great job.
50-50 or a 60-40 with this team. And my passing
Mhm.
game, you could throw the ball to Walker out of the backfield also. You've got a stud tight end you could throw the ball to. I think you've got solid
Mhm.
receivers. You could take a shot every once in a while. I just think I watched Brendan Sorsby because I'm an IU fan, and I'm not overly impressed with him, but I think he is a good quarterback. And I don't think he's a guy, put it like this, I don't think Brendan Sorsby is going to take you and win you a Big 12 championship by everybody jumping on his back. I think he is a cog in the machine. He's a central piece of the machine.
Mhm.
But this team needs to win the game. The offensive line's got to be good. The defensive line, especially if Corleone, has to be dominant. So to me, I'm wanting to play physical football if I look at this roster.
Okay. Then at that point, who do you have this Thursday versus Nebraska?
Cincinnati, Nebraska, to me, this is tough because you've got two teams with coaches that have underachieved. Matt Rule has been successful other places, and usually the third season under Matt Rule is where his teams take off. The only problem is he's playing in the Big Ten, where you've got Ohio State, you got Michigan, you got Penn State, you got Indiana. So that right there is the last two national championships. That's four or three of those four teams made the college football playoffs last year. They cannot afford, I mean, they can't afford to lose this game because with their schedule, you can't lose to Cincinnati. And when I look at it, to me, why would I'll give you this? I'll give you why I think Nebraska can win. I'll give you why I think Cincinnati can win, and then I'll give you how I actually think it'll play out. I think the reason Nebraska wins is the transfer portal gave a rising star quarterback, Dylan Raiola, a few special targets to work with. And we already talked about how UC secondary is going to have 4 new pieces in it. Now, the offense did lose a few stars for the Huskers, but you've got Dane Key from Kentucky, and you've got Cal's, I think his last name is Hunter from the University of California. He's going to give this retooled Bearcat secondary a lot of problems. Now, Cincinnati isn't starting from scratch in the secondary, but I don't think they're very far off from it. I think everything should be okay with this Bearcats team in time. But as I said before, I think it would have been really nice to get an FCS opponent to start the season out before you play a game like this. You're not playing in Lincoln, but you're playing in Arrowhead, so you're going to have a lot of Nebraska fans. But I think the Husker ground game should be good too. I think Corleone is probably going to be the best player on this football field, but the Nebraska offensive line is the best this program's had in a long time. So if I'm looking at it for Nebraska, I'm thinking they're just more diverse. They're able to go deep down the field. They've got, I think, receiving threats to give UC secondary issues. Now, if we go on the other end, why Cincinnati will win? I think one of Nebraska's biggest strengths last season was the ability to control the clock. All right. It didn't slow things down, but it managed the clock. It was deliberate when it needed to be. And they led the Big Ten, I think, in time of possession. Now, Cincinnati led the Big 12 in time of possession. And I think, what you're going to have here is you're going to have 2 teams that kind of want to play at the same pace if you look at last year. Now, we're not looking at last year. We're looking at Nebraska with a couple stud receivers and a quarterback that's now a sophomore. So I think this is going to be more where Nebraska is going to want to take shots. Cincinnati is going to want to slow the game down. It's a lot easier to slow the game down than it is to speed the game up in almost any sport. And the Bearcats have a strong 5 on that offensive front. It's just according to how quickly they mesh together. And I think Brendan Sorsby is a strong enough all-around quarterback to kind of match Raioli's production, because Raioli, I think it was like 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions last year. I think a lot of people look at like the game Nebraska gave Ohio State and think that that's more what they're going to get this year. I think you're still going to get a 6-6, 7-5 team. And I think Nebraska is in a must-win situation. So my winner in this game, Nebraska's favored by 6.5 points. If you want to bet the game, go to BetMGM. You can click on the links in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube to bet the game. It's not like they're playing in Lincoln, but Nebraska fans will invade Kansas City. The Cincinnati, I think, is going to be better than last season, but I don't think it's going to be able to get by Nebraska's experience. They didn't lose as many guys, and their additions, I think, were bigger than Cincinnati's additions. And I think in a game that will be about control and moving the chains, Raiola has the attack that he can mix it up a little bit more to create their own momentum. I don't think the Huskers are going to feel comfortable in this game at any point, but I think this is a game Nebraska wins 27-17. So if I'm betting this game, James, I'm taking Nebraska, and I'm giving the 6.5 points.
So it sounds like both teams have definitely improved since last year. Both teams are still on the hot seat. It's just that Nebraska has improved more than the Bearcats.
Yeah, and I think those 2 receivers they added just adds a lot more diversity, a lot more ability to stretch the field. And let's face it, I think Matt Rule is like a very good football coach. Scott Satterfield's not.
As a football coach, how do you feel about where the game is being played? You've touched on that obviously there's going to be a good amount of Nebraska fans at the game. Despite it being a UC home game, which just seems odd because at one point it was going to be played up in Indianapolis. You've coached teams literally at Lucas Oil Stadium.
3 days ago.
You know how that is. Yeah. So you know how it is to play at Lucas Oil Stadium. I feel playing there or playing at Paul Brown would have actually been good for the Bengals or the Bearcats as opposed to playing in Kansas City. I don't feel that is right or fair.
Were the Bearcats paid money to go to Nebraska to go to Kansas City for a home game?
it seems like they
Yeah.
would have been. I don't.
I
I
would
can't
think
imagine
that
that they
that would
would
have been the case
volunteer.
there because I don't know why you would give up a home game. And you're giving up a home game. This crowd's going to be probably 90-10 Nebraska fans. If you do it at Lucas Oil,
Mhm.
Nebraska fans travel really well, but it's probably a 60-40, 70-30 split for the Bearcats then. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I think the atmosphere will be great. I mean, it's Arrowhead Stadium. The atmosphere is always great. Nebraska has one of the greatest football traditions, even though the last 20 years it hadn't really seemed like it. But I don't know why you would want to take a home game and play it at Arrowhead Stadium. I mean, it seems kind of stupid to me. It's basically the same
Right.
thing if Nebraska came to Indianapolis as their home game to play Cincinnati. I don't know why UC would do that other than money. And let's face it, they're in the Big 12, so it should have been a lot of money to get them to do that.
Exactly. So well, hopefully they're making some money off of it. Hopefully it's going to benefit the program in the long run because it just in the short term doesn't make much sense. Now switching gears over to the RedHawks. I'm excited about talking about them. Coach Martin always does an amazing job. He's re-signed through 2029, so he ain't going anywhere.
You can't say
Actually,
that
I
in
was
college,
literally
James.
in a booster. I am very confident with him. He is one of those guys that has been so committed to the team. He's been with them since 2014 and has done an amazing job for the RedHawks. I know overall record isn't the greatest. It's 66 and 67, but then again, they play teams. Oh my gosh, every year they play a bunch of non-cupcakes in their non-conference schedule to help them play their conference because in their conference they're 51 and 32 and they have won it several times and are poised to win it again.
Well, I don't know if they're poised to win it again, but I think there's a decent shot here. This team could make it to the championship game for the third straight year. And I think that some MAC programs have this figured out, the transfer portal. And I think
Mhm.
the majority don't. But if you look at this, Toledo, Ohio, for the most part, Northern Illinois have been in the mix over the last 5 or 6 years. And I
Mhm.
think Miami University has done a better job than most of maintaining that winning consistency. I mean, Chuck Martin, I think people forget after Terry Hepner left, I mean, this program was down for a while. I mean, if you look back 24, you talked about him
Mhm.
being here since 2014, 2015. I mean, they were 5 and
Mhm.
19 those 2 years. But since then, they've only had one season with fewer than 6 wins. There's been 3 MAC title appearances in the last 6 years, going for 4 and 7 and 3 in a row this year. 2 championships, 6 bowl appearances, and 2020 was the only outlier here.
Mhm.
Now, I think this run,
Well, the Snoop Dogg Bowl
huh?
last year. Oh, they won the Snoop Dogg Bowl
Yeah,
last year.
well, good for them. But I think this run is going to be more challenging than what we've seen the last few years because that offense lost almost everybody. The defense has to replace almost all of the top players. And yet, with the transfer portal and what Coach Martin's done, I don't think Miami fans are freaking out because I think this roster, when you look at it, appears to be fine. I think this team it's really hard going to Wisconsin to play your first game. But I think this team, by the time they get to
Mhm.
conference play, will be one of the 2 or 3 best teams in this conference. I mean, they brought in an entire new receivers core. They got a fantastic veteran quarterback in DeQuan Finn, who played 3 years at Toledo, and he was a stud those 3 years at Toledo. He went to Baylor, kind of disappeared, but now he's back in the MAC with Miami. And I think they also have done one other thing as a smaller school. They lose a lot of starters, but I think what Coach Martin and his staff do is they coach up the younger guys really well. And they have actually
Mhm.
developed pretty good depth over the last few seasons with guys that can step in and shine. So I think it's not surprising when I say Miami's going to be in the mix for a third straight MAC appearance in the championship game. And when we look at last year, they didn't turn the ball over. And it hit shots down the field, but it was 90, I think it was 96 or 98th in scoring and right around that in total yards. They were 1 and 5 when they scored
Mhm.
20 or fewer points. That included that 38-3 loss to Ohio in the MAC championship game. But
Mhm.
now they have a quarterback. And I think the quarterback is a much higher level to what they've had. Like I said, Fenn was outstanding in his 3 years at Toledo. And when he's right, he's one of the best all-around group of 5 playmakers in the nation. Now, the receiving core, as I said, they're starting over in the portal. You got, I think it was Dion Colsey from Notre Dame. He's going into his 5th season. He only
Yeah.
has 21 career catches, but I mean, he played at Notre Dame, so he's got to have some talent. You've got Keith Reynolds from Washington. He's probably the inside guy. Colsey's the outside guy. And then you got Darren Williams from Florida State, who's a 6'3" option going into his 6th year. I mean, this is, you remember the movie Animal House, James? Okay,
Yeah.
you remember, what was it,
Great
Pluto
movie.
to John
Arizona
Belushi, the
State.
John Belushi character, who's like, man, the 8 years I've been in college have been the best of my life. And that's kind of the way this is going since the COVID thing. Now, the transfer portal brought in tight ends that are needed too. You got Grant Lepper from Iowa. And Iowa, they put out great tight ends all the time. You got Brody Cozen from Indiana. And both are still looking to make their first college catch. There's not a lot of experience at the tight end position, but there are athletes here that can make it. The offensive line, kind of got whacked in the portal. They lost star left tackle Will Jacobs to Texas Tech. And somewhere up front, transfers Austin Uki and Peyton Kirkland will fit in around backups and untested options. There's talent here, but I think it's going to need a little bit of time to come together. I think we're going to see that, unfortunately, against Wisconsin. Now, the top running backs are gone, but Jordan Brunson returns after finishing 3rd in the team with 299 yards and 4 scores. He's a big power back. So is Kenny Tracy, who's back after missing all of last year because he was injured. So when I look at this team on offense, I think there's a lot of questions, but I think there's a lot of pieces that will fit together as the season goes on. Now, with the Miami RedHawk defense, I think the defense came up with a ton of takeaways last year. The secondary was strong, and the team ended up 15th, I think, in the nation, allowing just 18.8 points per game. Now, unlike the offense, the defense isn't doing much through the transfer portal. They got, I think, what's his name? By Joby from Kansas. I think he will help. I think Cameron Wilson has 5 years of backup experience in Cincinnati. They'll be turned loose, and veteran Adam Trick should take on a bigger role after making 37 tackles, 4.5 sacks last year. The defensive tackles are big, but Roosevelt Andrews and Nasir Washington will produce. Washington should take a step up as the main guy on that defensive line. Now, you've got Matt Slopke. He's gone. That's a killer. He was a tackling machine. But you got Corbin Hondrew, who made 70 stops in the rotation. You got Oscar McWood, who's a solid veteran on the other side. And you got Malcolm McLean as a big banger who should be a statistical star in the middle. Now, the best for last here is the secondary. All right. If you could put Miami's secondary with UC's front 7, you might have a playoff team. Now, the safety combination of Silas Walters and Eli Blakely, I mean, they were 2nd and 3rd on the team in tackles respectively. Luke Evans is a big physical corner with all-star potential. Coy Beasley from Purdue is an untested but promising option on the other side. So when we look at Miami, I think the keys to the season are, they got to run the ball well. They win when they run the ball well. They were 5-0 when running for yards. I think it was like 100 yards or more. They're like 5-0 last year, 8-1 over the last 2 years. Last season, the team was 8-0 when they got past 110 and only lost to Notre Dame when they got to 100. So 110 is the big key for them because they were 8-1 when they got to 100. They were 8-0 when they got to 110. I think the key player on this team is probably Adam Trick. Again, there's several key issues on the D-line here. The tackles would be good, but that great secondary will struggle if there isn't any pressure. And I think Trick started to rise up in his 3rd season last year, but he has to crank it up for more than 4.5 tackle or sacks for this team to really kick in and do anything. So that's what I got on the Miami RedHawks.
So I'm excited about the quarterback, like you said, the Quan Finn. He's got all that experience in the MAC, those 3 years of being dominant, and then going to Colorado. And like you said, unfortunately,
Baylor. He went to
Colorado
Baylor.
did not work out.
Yeah.
Baylor, my bad, Baylor, and it didn't work out for him there. So he's
Oh,
back in the
James, this is
MAC.
a dude
Uh,
when he was in the MAC in those 3 seasons, 7,000 yards, 63 touchdowns, 23 picks. The picks are a little higher than what you like, but those stats can get you to a bowl game at least. And he gets a little bit more of a running element to, if you know what I mean. He ran for over 1,800 yards and 25 touchdowns in Toledo in those 3 years.
Yeah, it felt like last year was kind of they owed Brett, so they let him continue that, or maybe they didn't have anybody else in the cupboard to continue to be the starting quarterback because after his injury, he just was not the player that he had been in his career. He was another one of those players that was on his sixth season last year, Brett Gabbert, and the previously had done amazing things for them, but just didn't have it in him anymore.
Yeah. And I think Miami won't roll over in these early games. We'll talk about that with Wisconsin. I, I mean, that's going to be a tough game. You've got Rutgers, you've got UNLV. Those are both solid
Mhm.
programs. Um, I mean, you're not playing Kent State, you're not playing UMass and MAC action either. That's a killer because those are two easy wins. Those would be two layups. But the conference season isn't bad until you get to November. And that's when this team should be clicking because this championship, I think, is going to come down to a run of at Ohio, Toledo at home, at Buffalo, and Ball State at home. Those 4 games are going to decide where the season goes for the Miami RedHawks this season.
Speaking of this season, we just talked about the Bearcats. We're talking about the RedHawks now. I want to get your opinion on the fact that they aren't playing this year. Fortunately they are playing one more time next year at Paul Brown, and I'm looking forward to that. I got that marked on the calendar. But this season, you see they switched off. They're playing Bowling Green, which is just another MAC team. I think
It's a
even
lot
it's
lesser
a
MAC
lesser.
team too.
Yeah, it's a lesser
You
MAC
think
team,
maybe
which is funny to
Cincinnati
say.
didn't like the fact that Miami whooped her butt?
Exactly. I kind of feel that that played into it, and it's weird because UC had been dominating for a long time there, but after they did lose that one game, they have kind of backpedaled, and it feels like they've kind of I don't know if they're the ones who canceled the games or what happened, but I keep hearing that it was UC canceled something, so Miami canceled something, so and they keep basically, oh, if you're going to be that way, I'm going to be this way, that kind of thing. That's what I've
I
heard.
have a tendency to blame it on the bigger program normally. Especially, it just seems weird that you're coming off Miami beating Cincinnati.
Exactly. Yeah, so that did kind of feel odd. And basically, they just tied it up or went ahead one game. It wasn't even like the overall record because I mean, gosh, they've been playing for over 100 years now. That's the part that really bothers me is that they're going to throw that tradition out the
Well,
window.
I mean, tradition's thrown out the window, anyways. I mean, you kind of lose the edge of rivalries when players change teams every year. I mean, they change teams as much as they change underwear. I mean, you got a guy from Cincinnati who transferred to Miami of Ohio.
Well, actually, yeah, that has been happening a lot of late. For the longest time that while I've been a part of UC in Miami, they have been going the other direction. It's been a lot of the players going from Miami to UC. Some of their star linebackers. I mean, heck, one of the years it was the defensive player of the year for the MAC, and then moved over to UC, and then played against them the next, played against his old team, and that just felt so
Yeah.
weird.
So
So it sounds like there's a lot of changes going on there in college football, and you might not always be the biggest fan of
I'm
the
never
different
a big fan of
changes.
changes because I'm an old man.
You sitting on your front porch yelling at the
Get off
clouds. Yes,
my
sir.
lawn.
So exactly. So what do you feel is going to happen in this game? It seems like you're leaning towards Wisconsin, but it seems like you're giving Miami at least a little bit of a
I
chance.
think Miami can hang in the game. When I look at Wisconsin, there's a lot of questions with Wisconsin. And Luke Fickell's going to start to feel a lot of pressure if this program doesn't start to turn into what they wanted. They paid him a lot of money to come get this done. And so far, he's not. And the same thing, I can give you why I think Miami has a chance, and that is Wisconsin's still a work in progress. They still don't have a sure thing ground game to rely on. The passing game likely won't pick up a lot of slack, and the defense has to find his groove again as a killer in the backfield. On the flip side, the RedHawks have a star quarterback. He's coming in to take over. He was great at Toledo, didn't do anything at Baylor, and now he's about to go back to the MAC where he's been great. The secondary for Miami is nasty enough to all but shut down the Badger wide receivers. Now, when I go to the opposite side, though, why Wisconsin wins, I think Miami will be excellent as the season goes on. I think when they get to that stretch in November, they might be the best team by then. I think the pieces are there. But when we look at Wisconsin, the pieces are there, but the offensive line got crushed in the portal. I'm talking about Miami, their offensive line. So you got to
Oh yeah.
rebuild that. All the top skill players are gone, and while the defense should
Mhm.
be good, I don't think it's going to be strong enough to overcome a bad day if the offense can't put up 25 or 30 points. I think the Badger defense should come out roaring. I think it needs more star power, but it has the depth to keep throwing bodies into the rotation to wear down Miami. But all eyes on the offensive side. You got Maryland transfer quarterback Billy Edwards Jr. I think he should bring some stability. Now, I think the question here is, can the Badgers run the ball? Can they attack this Miami defense? I mean, they're going to have to run it because Miami secondary will be able to keep them in. Now,
Mhm.
Wisconsin, far too often last year, watching them play was like pulling teeth to generate points. That can't be a problem in this game, but it will be. I don't think Miami is ready to pull the upset here, but it's 17 and a half points. I think this is a game that ends Wisconsin 30, Miami 14, Miami 16, somewhere in that area. So I would actually take Miami into 17 and a half points here.
Nice. So it sounds like we got to cover two great teams, two great programs that are on the rise, both UC and Miami. They both have tough opponents. They're both going, to be quite honest, I know UC is considered home, but it's not really. So they're both going away from their home. They're both going to play tough games. So it sounds like there's a lot of good stuff going on
Hey,
here
James, I
at
got to ask you a question
Tri-State.
though, because I know you try to cover a different school every week. Who you covering week one in the 2025 season? What game you checking out?
Oh, week one, I am excited. I'm going down to Western Kentucky with both UC and Miami being on the road. I had ambition to go to Wisconsin. I'm not going to lie to you. I never thought even about going to Kansas City for a minute, but I was wanting to go to Wisconsin for a while now. But I'm going down to Western Kentucky, and they're playing against North Alabama, and obviously that's going to be kind of more of a one-sided thing there as well. I feel Western, they just come off that big win against Sam Houston. I feel they're going to continue their momentum. They're going to roll. I've always wanted to go down to Western Kentucky. I've been a huge fan of them since back in the day with Bobby Rainey. So, and even farther back than that, my high school football coach, he he played at Western. That was his alma mater. So I've always wanted to go down, but I've always said 3 hours is too far for me. But this year, making the trip, going down to Western Kentucky, and looking forward to starting off college football the right way, watching a game live.
Well, you'll have to report back to us next week on the show, Tuesday morning. Let us know how that went. I would likely lean Western Kentucky also. I mean, they put up over 500 yards against Sam Houston State, 401 yards passing. And North Alabama is a team I don't think anybody's really expecting much from this year. I think they will be a scrappy, overperforming team that may even be able to get the 5, 6 wins, maybe even possible bowl game at 6 wins. But They've got a decent run game, but I think Western Kentucky runs them off the field here. I think this ends up like a 48-20 game, but you get to see a lot of points scored.
Sounds great. Well, for James, Ernest, and